when inflation's going bananas and people are like, how are kids going to ever afford homes? Well, the family trust is what's going to help them.
How does it compare to a 401k?
And so,
that's the average total in a 401k?
the average total in a 401k.
It's free and off.
Yeah. It's like they don't know what it is. It's extraordinarily dangerous.
I have $30,000 in this. I want to borrow some of it or all of it.
You have ignorance. If you take more, you run the risk of losing it all.
What does the cash value actually mean?
It's giving a toddler a weapon.
And so people
Really good
wouldn't
market.
know how much their pension's going to be.
They decimated and destroyed one of the biggest fortunes the world had ever seen.
You talk a lot about the Rockefellers.
So the Rockefellers understood, we need, number one, to have a trust. They know how to make money.
Kind of like football teams. Who do you prefer, Vanderbilts or the Rockefellers?
Look, man, the Vanderbilts had more money than the U.S. Treasury, but they decimated their wealth. Cornelius passes on his money to his eldest son, William Henry. He doubles the estate in 9 years. And then when he died, it was the last time that estate grew. They destroyed it because they became wealthy socialites. They knew how to spend money, but they didn't really know how to grow it. They had these great Gatsby level parties, in these oceanfront mansions. They own 10 mansions in Manhattan. Some have been torn down, but they own none of them now. And they just destroyed that wealth. They didn't have trust, which meant he gave this instruction, keep the money together, but no one had to abide by that. Nobody knew how to do that. It wasn't spelled out in any way. Only, his eldest son understood that. And they didn't have insurance to replenish it in case something went wrong. So they didn't have trust. They didn't have insurance. Where the Rockefellers, they're on their 6th generation wealth, moving to the 7th generation. John D. Rockefeller had a ton of wealth as well. And he's been able to perpetuate it generation to generation because the trust spells out what the intentions are. It's perpetual in nature. And then what happens is each generation gets to utilize money under certain criteria and circumstances. They don't just automatically get it. And that every Rockefeller born gets life insurance on them because they're seen as an asset to the Rockefeller family. And the loss of that asset would be a detriment to the family. So it replenishes the trust. And so now they can finance their own ventures. They can give to philanthropy. They can do tons of stuff because it's spelled out in the trust that's holding the money together, keeping together, which is what the Vanderbilts want to do, but weren't able to do. And then the insurance, regardless of interest rates, regardless of taxes, regardless of inflation, creates this buoyancy and contingency that every time someone dies, it replenishes whatever's been utilized from the trust. Because not every business succeeds. Because not every current economic environment's great because interest rates go up or taxes get high. Or, when I say high taxes, that could be, there's been times where in my lifetime, the real estate or the estate tax exemption was only $675,000. It's at $15 million now. But imagine if you die at the wrong time and you don't have a trust, boom, all of a sudden 55% of that is completely decimated. So that death benefit creates that contingency and that buoyancy. And what I love, and I'm going to teach here, is if you set this up, you don't have to be wealthy to set it up. You don't have to be a Rockefeller. You just simply have to understand how to use trusts and insurance. And when you do this, you're one generation away from never needing to use a bank to finance anything for your family again. You can earn the interest and capture it, and every dollar of interest you pay builds the trust, which actually helps out your kids and your grandkids. So you're actually benefiting your family versus just benefiting the banks. And the banks have done well. Look at every major building and every single state in our country, and you're going to find the biggest buildings are banks. So this is a completely different shift in philosophy. And once you understand it, you're going to learn how to protect, preserve, and perpetuate wealth. You're going to learn how to create a legacy that lasts. And I'm here to help 1 million people build lasting legacies. That's what I'm here to do.
Okay, cool. Well, then paint the picture for me and kind of break my brain on the data behind it. So what years are these?
Oh, we're talking the 1800s. So John D. Rockefeller made his money in like oil, kerosene, petroleum kind of world, and made a ton of money. At the time, he was the richest American. And he's passed on wealth for 6 generations, where most wealth only lasts for 3 generations. And so I contrast that to the Vanderbilt family.
Okay.
Right. And so the Vanderbilts had more money than the U.S. Treasury. Think about that. They started with like shipping, but it became international. And Cornelius Vanderbilt, he died and he passed like 95% of his fortune to his eldest son, William Henry.
Okay.
And William Henry doubled the estate.
Cool.
Over 9 years and then died.
Okay. So not a trust fund baby. You did a good job.
No, he did a good job. But then that was the last time that fortune ever grew. It just completely declined after that. Part of the decline was they bought 10 mansions in Manhattan, and they own 0 of those now.
Jeez.
And the Biltmore estates in the Carolinas, they don't own those anymore. I'm about to speak on this topic at the Biltmore out there. They owned the Breakers in Rhode Island. No longer. So they decimated and destroyed one of the biggest fortunes the world had ever seen.
Yeah.
They had 0. They didn't have a trust. Okay. So trust, let's just break that down into 2 things. You can have revocable trust. And this is what I recommend for most of the population.
Yeah.
A revocable trust says, hey, when I die, let me spell out what's going to happen. So number 1, we're going to avoid probate. Okay. So probate, we look at actors like James Gandolfini or artists like Prince. They didn't have a trust. So all of their information becomes public knowledge and it goes through the court system. Remember the show Aviator with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah.
Who was that depicting?
Howard Hughes.
Howard Hughes had no trust.
Yeah.
It took over 20 years for the court to distribute his wealth.
Jeez.
Which decimated it pretty heavily. Yeah. Because he didn't have like a wife or kids. It went to cousins and stuff like that. So, you have a trust that avoid probate. Upon death, it protects assets. Yeah. Because revocable means you can put money in, you can take it out. Revocable means it's just kind of transparent. It's not really doing anything while you're alive. But when you die, upon death, it becomes irrevocable. And now when it's irrevocable, it basically spells out what do you want to have happen. So if you have an insurance policy and you list the trust as a beneficiary, it goes to the trust spells out what you want to have happen with the money. Keeps it away from the courts. Done properly, you can leave behind twice as much money without estate tax. Now, basically in today's world in the United States, you can leave behind 30 million without estate tax. 15 million, and then, use this coupon essentially when the first, spouse dies. And then if you're married, the next person can die and pass on another 15 million, leaving 30 million. So if the estate's above that, you could start getting hit with like 40% tax or even higher than that, depending on how much you're leaving behind. So the reason why revocable isn't it's probably more available, more accessible, more affordable to the masses is if you don't have, a ton of money to protect, it's more affordable and it's less onerous to use. It doesn't provide liability protection though. But it does spell out what you want to have happen with your assets and these kind of things. And the Vanderbilt family didn't even have that. So now all of a sudden it just gets passed on and the heirs get to do whatever they want. They get it dropped into their lap and you can see what happened. Yeah. Now there's a different type of trust and you probably guessed it. It's the irrevocable, right? The irrevocable is actually in the philosophy of own nothing, control everything. That is pretty much the thing that you would hear from the Rockefellers all the time.
So meaning that the individuals don't own it, but the trust does.
The trust now owns it. It's arm's length because it's irrevocable. The trust owns the assets.
Gotcha.
And ultimately, if someone went to sue you, well, the trust has the assets. So as long as the trust has been around for 6 months to 3 years, depending on which state it's set up in, then people don't have a claim to what's in the trust, right? It's this really nice protective barrier. So some people do these offshore and that can be amazing for asset protection, but it can be very difficult to actually access that money. It can be very expensive. Yeah. So you'd have to be worth a ton of money to really consider doing that. In the United States, there's something called a Domestic Asset Protection Trust, DAPT. So Domestic Asset Protection Trust, one of the things you can do is you can basically list who your trustees are. One of those trustees can be your distribution trustee. That distribution trustee, you can ask for money, they can give it to you. And if they say no, you can fire them and hire someone new. Yeah. So when it's an irrevocable trust, it still avoids probate. It still spells out what you want. It still lets you leave behind more money without estate tax. But if you own assets inside of the trust, it could keep it outside of your estate, effectively allowing you to pass on a lot more money without estate taxes. Because some of the issues that happen, when we're talking about the Vanderbilts, some of the issues are this. Like, one, if you're passing money down and it's poorly designed, you have a tax that starts to take away the money, right? You have ignorance that can become a major problem, because what if someone receives money when they're going through a divorce or a major health challenge or a mental episode or something like that? Ultimately, they now get a bunch of money dumped into their lap, which could start to push away purpose. It could start to create entitlement. It can start to create this consumption mentality of spending money, not necessarily producing. So it's kind of like it's giving a toddler a weapon. Yeah, it's like they don't know what it is. It's extraordinarily dangerous, right? If someone's an economic toddler because they just haven't figured out how to make money on their money, what it looks like to invest, like they don't have a good team, like it becomes really detrimental. And, ultimately you just have a bunch of liability if something's not inside of a trust. It's just exposed. It's just right there,
So was there a bunch of like lawsuits against Vanderbilt?
I don't know all the details about that. I just know that they spent a ton of money, an extraordinary amount of money. They had these like waterfront mansions that they were throwing these like Great Gatsby type parties as I was reading about it. So pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Ostentatious. And they were like, the thing is, Cornelius was very frugal as you read about him. And they say that he wanted people to keep the money together. He told his family, keep the money together, which his eldest son did. And then it just got destroyed because words needed to be kind of captured somewhere. And it needed to be spelled out with instructions. And that's what a trust kind of does. And so the Rockefellers have been so much more intentional about that. And they've been able to pass on money for generations. So I really want to demonstrate kind of how this works in corporate America. And then I'm going to translate this to how it works with the Rockefellers. Because the Rockefellers understood they had to have a trust.
Yeah.
Right? So setting up that trust allowed them to have that liability protection. It allowed them to spell things out of what they want to have happen. It allowed them to perpetuate because the trust still exists from generation to generation with that set of instructions and how things go about. Like one of the things that I really talk about and what the Rockefellers do is something called the family constitution, which is here building one with someone yesterday. And it like spells out, we talk about how they do want to fund education, how they want to participate in their children's entrepreneurial pursuits by giving them some money, but not all the money because they want them to have skin in the game. It talked about, celebrations like weddings and trips being, supported by the trust. But, so it was like they wanted to give their kids opportunity, but they didn't want to give them so much that they felt like they just could sit around and do nothing.
Yeah.
Because they thought finding a career, and they thought the trust could help them take their time to find the right career and to establish the right foundation, not having to circumvent and immediately earn money. And it would help them with a down payment for a home, but it would also finance the home. So we're going to talk about all this, and it's inside of the trust. So it spells it out from generation to generation. And it's pretty amazing because now they're going to know who the first person was, because how many people know their great, great, great grandfather's name or what they stood for or what they did. But ultimately, you can, set this up that your great, great, great grandkids could benefit, know who you are, and give them kind of a way to maybe avoid banks permanently. And the interest, rather than going to banks, could go to your family trust. And that you don't have to worry about inflation pushing out affordability for your heirs because you've got a way to battle that. So let's start with corporations and then get into how that works.
Okay.
There's something called non-qualified deferred compensation. Non-qualified means it's not a qualified plan like a 401k or an IRA or something like that.
And
Those are qualified plans are government qualified.
Oh, gotcha.
Non-qualified are private.
Okay.
Deferred compensation is just as it sounds.
Yeah.
You're going to give someone money in the future. And so, AKA, what do these sound like? Kind of how pensions got started.
Okay.
So we're going to reverse all the way back to 1947. Right. GE's this huge conglomerate at the time. They start suffering with some of their divisions. They're like, how could we become number one or number two in all these divisions? And they thought, well, the best way to do it would be we have to recruit the human capital. We have to have the right talent. Well, how are they going to get the right people? Well, the best way to get these people, because they all worked for competitors, and when you're working for competitors, then basically, how are they going to convince them to come over?
Mm-hmm.
They thought money would be probably the best way to do it. And they said, hey, if you come work with us for a while, then we'll give you a pension and you can retire and have extra cash.
So before then, that wasn't a thing.
No. So, I mean, if it was something before 1947, it was small.
Gotcha.
Right. GE really brought it in a huge way.
Into where
it was the
pension
masses. And by the way, this is why a lot of other people started getting pensions. Be like, hey, why are these guys getting pensions? I want a pension. Why are these guys getting health insurance? I want health insurance.
And the idea was it was a significant amount to where after you retire.
Yeah. And so when you think about it, they might work for 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're maybe in their 50s. And so they've got that time period to save up some money. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're going to have to pay that money in those retirement years.
Mm-hmm.
The nice thing is back in those days for the company, these people didn't live as long as today.
Yeah.
Right. So then the person would eventually die. Well, the way that they funded it was they immediately bought a whole life policy on these executives.
Okay.
They used cash value that grew inside of the policy. They used that to supplement or pay for the retirement. They'd say, here's the pension. We're using this cash value. But then that individual that's retired is going to eventually die, which means there'd be this death benefit, right? And that death benefit would now pay back GE plus a positive return, right? Because now the death benefit is recovering all of what they spent plus more, and it's tax-free.
Okay. Could you walk me through with some numbers? We can just use some fake numbers.
Yeah.
But it's like, how does that look?
Back in those days, we'll use smaller numbers.
Okay.
Let's say that they buy a $100,000 policy.
Okay.
Day one, there's no cash in there, right?
Yeah.
But now we're in year one. Maybe they're putting in, $500 a month. So maybe there's like $3,500 at the end of the first year because there's cost to acquire the insurance.
Gotcha. So does it get broken down? So like, you said they're paying like $500 a month. Is it like a part of it goes to the insurance and a part of it goes to the cash value?
Absolutely. And in today's world, you can design it where you use what's called paid up additions or high early cash value policies.
Okay.
Either one. And so you might be able to have 80 to 90% cash value in the first year. So it really depends on if you're looking more for death benefit or cash value. My philosophy and the Rockefeller method philosophy is you look to protect your life first. So you go, what is your economic value replacement? So economic value replacement is this. If you died, how much of a lump sum of money would be required to provide the cash flow that you're currently making? Right?
Gotcha.
So think of it this way. Someone might think, $1 million is a lot of money, right? But I'd ask, if you could never earn another dollar the rest of your life, right? Is $1 million a lot? So it depends on how much you make.
Yeah.
If you're making $50,000 a year, still that's okay. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. If you're
making $500,000, it's nothing, right? It's 2 years. So when I look at death benefit, I always want to ask the company, well, how much will you give me? Right? How much will you give me? And they're going to look at my income, my age, because they want to look how many more years am I possibly going to work? And if someone's in their 60s, they might say, look, we'll give you 10 times your income. But if someone's in their 20s, they might say, we'll give you 35 times your income because that's what it's going to take to replace your income, which also means you get less than your value. Why? How many people in their 20s make less money than they make in their 40s? Most. So you're going to have increases in income. So they're going to give you what my friends in Texas call a haircut by giving you less money than what's available, to your future. So this is give you based upon statically today. So income and age. Now, if you're retired, they'll look at your assets. How much do you have in assets? And they'll give you like 1 times whatever your asset is, right? All the assets combined.
Yeah.
So that's your economic value replacement. You just want to ask the company, how much will you give me? And you can blend that. Some people might do that with some term insurance because they don't have the cash flow, or all term insurance because they're starting out. But you can get convertible term, so you can move it to whole life as your cash flow improves.
Gotcha.
Okay. And you don't have to prove that your health or anything. You can just automatically convert it because you're already insured. So if we go back here, so we have this individual, right? GE says, I want to buy life insurance on him.
Yeah. So they buy $100,000 policy.
Right. They're like, okay, we got this $100,000 death benefit. We have 0 cash value. Okay. This is the time frame. Maybe at 1 year, Now we've got 3,500. And then the second year, it's going to be like, it's going to get better. It's not going to be, what are we paying? 500, we're paying $6,000 a year. So maybe they've now put in $12,000. Maybe they only have like 8,100 because especially back in those days, it took a lot longer because they weren't using paid up additions and high yearly cash value. But in today's policies, you should be able to break even anywhere between year 2 and year 5, depending on the company and how it's designed. You're going to be out at a point where whatever cash you put in is there. And then from there on, you could definitely get way more cash. But there are certain companies that are maybe stock companies, or maybe they're not really good with whole life, where it could take 10 years or longer to break even. And this is why so much of the media and so many financial gurus hate it, right? They're like, oh, it's a hole you throw your money into. It's a waste of money. It's just, I get it, because so many policies are either designed improperly or inefficiently, or, those kind of things. And that's frustrating for the average person, because like, how do I know if I have it right? Well, we've created, Matt on our team's created AI tools to analyze people's insurance and take a look. And, we also have people on our team that will analyze insurance that we could refer you to see if it's designed properly.
Yeah. It's a question. So what does the cash value actually mean?
It's actually cash that you could cash out the policy.
Okay.
Or you could borrow against. And when you borrow, they keep your money in the policy, and they use it as collateral, so your money's still earning cash or earning dividends or earning interest. And then they're giving you a loan against that, and the insurance company lends it at a similar interest rate to what you're earning.
Okay, so let's use that $100,000 example. Yep. So you're saying like year 5, you'd have how much cash value?
I don't know. You should definitely be in the positive, more than what you put in. Meaning
more than 100,000? Or
no, because that's the death benefit. Remember,
gotcha. Okay.
You're putting in $500 a month, which is really high. You wouldn't actually be, it's like, and by the way, as you get dividends, your death benefit increases. And dividends are not guaranteed, but the companies we look at have paid dividends for over 100 years, never missed. There's some that have paid for 150 years. So we're talking Civil War, we're talking World Wars, we're talking we're talking the Depression, the Great Recession. And once the dividend's paid, it becomes guaranteed, but you have a minimum guaranteed interest rate. Nothing that gets too exciting,
Gotcha.
A couple percent, 3%, 4%. And then the dividends could be higher than that, but there's still the cost of insurance.
Gotcha.
But the longer you own the policy, the closer the dividend is what gets credited.
Yeah.
Because it becomes more efficient over time.
So if we're saying 5 years in, you would have contributed about $30,000.
Yeah, you'll have at least that.
In cash value. Okay, so now
the death benefit, if it was really funded this heavily, because the way this is funded would be a lot of cash because of the amount of death benefit.
Gotcha.
So that death benefit's going to increase.
Yeah. So now that I have $30,000 in this, I want to borrow some of it or all of it. How does that look?
Yeah, you just fill out a form. Or make a phone call. And then they send you the money to wherever you've been paying it from, or they overnight it to you. Either wire it in or overnight it. So it's pretty simple. It takes about 72 hours, maybe a little bit longer.
And then what happens? Does that decrease my death benefit? Because
if you die, your death benefit stays the same. But if you die and that loan's outstanding, they'll subtract the loan from the death benefit and you get what's left over.
Gotcha.
So maybe the death benefit at that time is like $120,000, right? And so you'd still get $90,000 because the death benefit increases as the cash value increases.
Gotcha. Okay.
So ultimately, so you have this person, right? The company buys life insurance on this individual. The individual goes through life, uses the cash value to supplement the pension. But then when they die, the money comes back to the company with a positive return. And it's tax-free.
Gotcha. So they're paying the pension out of the policy,
cash value, have the death benefit when the person dies.
It replenishes
money back to the company. So yeah, that's how.
And presumably, I mean, at that time they would get more back from the death benefit than what they put into the policy.
Yeah. But what happened was Wall Street came along.
Yeah.
They're like, dude,
if there's one thing Wall Street can do,
dividends,
so they can ruin things.
Yeah, these dividends are like 5%, 6%. You get this cost of insurance. The stock market is getting 10%. Why would you get 5 or 6 when you get 10? So this is what's wild. These companies, because you hear about all these pensions that went bankrupt.
Yeah.
They're like, great, we're going to get 10% in the market. We're going to pay 6% to the pension, right? This is for the individual that's now retired. I don't know what that is.
It looks like a retired person.
Yeah. So their back's crooked, hardly able to stand up.
Yeah.
So, and you can they're like, you'll be able to keep the 4% because you got world-class managers, right? You get the world's best because there's billions of dollars in these pensions.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is, let's just use these numbers. You have $100,000 and you owe $6,000 in pension payments. But let's say it's the year 2000. The market went down, 15%. So now you're at 85,000. Plus you took out 6,000. So now you're down to 79,000, right? And now the next year you got to pay out another 6,000. But guess what happened in 2001? We have like a 20% loss. Okay. So that's taking us down to like another $15,800 lost. So now we're at what, 63,000-ish?
Yeah.
But we also have $6,000 has to come out.
Again, for the pension.
Right. For the pension. So now we're at $57,000 after the $6,000 comes out. And we're 2 years in. Oops. This is called disinvesting. And if you take more than 4% out, you run the risk of losing it all.
Because it can never recuperate.
Right. Because we know investing looks like this, the compound interest curve.
Yeah.
Disinvesting looks the same, but it goes this way. You're starting to take money out. And then in the negative years, it has an extra compounding effect of loss.
Yeah.
And so that's why we saw so many pensions go bankrupt. And then Weston, unfortunately, they said, well, we don't want to give defined benefit plans. Defined benefit is like, this is your pension. We're going to have defined contribution, meaning we'll match you and you can put money away. But now you don't even have world-class managers. You just get these funds that are overhyped and
so people
really good
wouldn't
market.
know how much their pension's going to be?
No, because they don't have a pension. They have a 401k.
Oh, gotcha.
401k is what replaced the pension, and that's defined contribution instead of defined benefit.
Oh, yeah. So it's like you don't know what you'll get at the end.
And less than 1% have more than $1 million in them.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you have to be, what was the stat that you told me? It's like you have to be earning more than like $300,000.
Average is like $179,000. That's the average. So that's not really going to do a good job at creating for retirement. And so,
oh, that's the average total in a 401k?
That's the average total in a 401k.
It's freaking awful.
Yeah.
You get
so
like
less than 1% have $1 million.
You get like 2 years if you're living semi-normal.
Yeah. So back to this Rockefeller method. So the Rockefellers understood, hey, we need, number one, to have a trust.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be irrevocable. It's got to be perpetual, meaning we have to choose the right state so it continues from generation to generation. It doesn't just get dismantled at one time, right? We need to spell things out of how we want it governed.
Yeah.
I call that the family constitution. It says, hey, this is how we want this to go.
What did they call it? Do you know?
They might call it like a letter of wishes or statement of purpose or something like that.
Family constitution sounds cooler.
I made up the term and so this is what we're going to call it.
It's catchy.
It does. So, and I've been writing a lot of them with people, which is really fun, because it's in their words, it's their preference. A lot of the legalese is critical, right? From the attorneys, but it's not personal. And so when you have this family constitution, then you have the rest of the body of the trust. This is like how it's governed.
Yeah.
Right. How to operate. These are the like specifics of what needs to happen legally to make it a trust and to make sure that it avoids probate. And that's the deal. Now,
which is pretty amazing because it's like, I mean, that's always the issue of you've got these people who've amassed knowledge through their process of gaining wealth. And the thing that they want to do is try to pass it on to their descendants, that knowledge. But it's like, you've got kids who aren't interested and things like that. But now you have this kind of stipulation that they have to comply by, and it creates a need to understand the values that grandpa's trying to teach you.
I mean, people can literally get what would the Rockefellers do? Mm-hmm. Just DM me at Garrett B. Gunderson Rockefellers. And we have a course that's downloaded to create your family constitution.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
if people pay for a course for legacymethod.co, they actually get AI tools to help build the family constitution.
Oh, cool. So you like input your ideas and it helps.
And the last 3 people that came to Cash Cabin, we spent a couple hours, which normally takes people days, and got their family constitution. Every single one of them, tears were shed. I cried during 2 of them too.
Yeah.
It's just so cool because it's like such an important part of their life and such an intimate part. And for them to capture that, and they're like, oh my God, I've worked my whole life and now I have a framework to pass on for the generations. I have signposts to give to my, future generation, my heirs. And so here's what the Rockefellers understood. The Rockefellers, like, cool, they know how to make money, right? But not every new Rockefeller that's born always is going to make the same amount of money.
Yeah, they may not contribute.
And when they die, they don't know what interest rates are going to be. They don't know what taxes might be. They don't know what impact inflation might have had on the trust. So they pretty much go, all right, first Rockefeller buys a permanent death benefit with life insurance, right? So typically kind of a whole life type of policy. Every new Rockefeller born,
Gets
every
a policy
single
at
one.
birth.
Yep, they get a policy 30 days in, right? And this becomes something that, by the way, the trust owns. So it's not owned by the kids. It's not even owned by John D. It's owned by the trust, which means the trust keeps it out of the estate. It protects it from kids just having the money and spending. And it spells out, what happens and keeps it, tax efficient and all those factors. And what's kind of cool is a lot of our clients are business owners, so they could pay each kid $14,000. Right? So at a certain point, you can justify $14,000. And in today's world, it's easier than when my kids were born.
Yeah.
Because now you got parents that are doing stuff on social media with their kids, and that's part of marketing and can be paid, where I had to wait till my kids were old enough to open for me for a comedy set or travel with me to events and hand out books, or, I found all these ways, and the $14,000 I pay them would then be tax-free, right? And then would go into a cash value policy.
Now, is that tax-free to you or tax-free to them or both?
It's tax deductible to me because I'm paying them.
Gotcha.
Tax-free to them.
Ah.
So it's tax-free. And then in the policy, it's growing tax advantaged, meaning I don't have to pay tax on it as it grows. I could pull it out. The first dollars I put in get pulled out first. That's known as FIFO, first in, first out. Most investments are LIFO. The last dollars in, not the first out, which means you get interest back, which means taxable. FIFO means principal, and then that's tax-free. And then I can also take a loan and to keep it tax-free. So I might have this be completely tax-free inside of the trust. It can pass on without estate tax or income tax, which is again tax-free. So it's a pretty cool system. Now, here's what's beautiful about this. Yeah. So let's say, whether it's Rockefellers or whether it's me, I have all these life insurance policies. So I have this death benefit, right? When I die, the death benefit funds the trust. The domestic asset protection trust for me, for other people might be revocable trust. And then my family constitution spells out, hey, we'll go ahead and cover a down payment of up to 20% on a starter home. But because when I die, there's going to be millions in this trust, rather than putting it in the market, I could then put it in the real estate of my heirs, where I become the bank through this trust. So let's say, just for simplicity, it's a $500,000 home.
Yeah.
The trust pays $100,000 down payment. That's forgiven. But it finances $400,000. Let's say interest rates right now are 7%.
Yeah.
I could charge my heirs 5.5%. And this is what I love. So they get this house, Weston.
Are you just choosing the percentage? Like,
Yeah,
is that,
you get to choose it.
you can just decide. Okay.
So they get this house, right?
Yeah.
Rather than going to a bank
And paying them interest.
and paying them interest, they go to our trust, which is now the bank. And check this out. They're paying interest, but they're paying interest back to the trust.
Yeah.
So let's say this is my son. He's paying interest to the trust. And then when my son has a kid, and that kid goes to get their first house, right? They buy their first house. The trust covers the down payment. Let's say, again, that's $100,000. They don't have to pay. They finance $400,000, right?
And your son's kid would presumably
and basically the interest that my son paid is now benefiting his son.
Oh, yeah.
Because the interest is now in the trust, not in a bank. And now his son, my grandson, is paying interest to the trust, not to a bank. So most people are paying money to the bank, and it's like a third of all their earnings goes to interest over a lifetime. Now that interest goes into your family trust. That family trust is financing the next thing for the next generation, which means, number one, I don't have to have any market money, no market exposure. I mean, my only market exposure is real estate, which is going to go up and down for sure. But I actually have a piece of collateral. I actually have a piece of property, right? And so I've got no stock market risk, right? I still have real estate risk, right? Number two, I'm minimizing the interest rate risk, to my heirs, because I'm the financing person through the trust. Spelled out. Like maybe we just say, hey, we're going to be 10% below market, 15% below market on the interest rate.
Gotcha.
If interest rates were crazy and they were 10%, my family's getting 8.5%, right? It's a benefit to them, but the money's coming right into us. We're not paying closing, dude.
And it's a win-win.
Weston, the crazy thing is closing costs on a home can be up to 5%, right? You've got all of these different fees, right? You've got the loan origination fee.
Oh, gotcha.
Right?
And in that case, you would skip it because you're just basically paying cash.
We got loan origination fees. We have all, like, if you look at the closing documents, there's still some fees that we're going to pay for like title insurance and things like that.
But you have to do that anyways.
But there's a ton of fees on that could be eliminated.
And you're also
I'm telling you, it's going to be between 1% and 5%.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about a $500,000 property, we're talking about $25,000.
But then your
potential
grandson
savings.
also is avoiding like PMI, private mortgage insurance, all that crap.
There's no PMI. If they miss one missed payment because of something going on, it's not going to hurt their credit.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Cool. And it's
we're not going to through the trust report on the credit, and there's still the property. And we can have a provision if it's a house that they can't, pay, maybe after 3 months, we have a provision for a loan mod, where they have a little bit lower payment. And then after 6 months, if they can't pay, then it's about, looking to sell and find something more affordable.
Gotcha.
Something like that. Like
for accountability.
Yeah.
Purposes.
Basically there's still going to be some accountability there, but now we have this family trust. It's funding all of these different houses over time, and so now the interest rate is going back to the family trust. Each house is collateral. Each house is benefiting the most important assets of the trust, which are kids, grandkids, and heirs, right? Yeah. That's the value, is now we can invest in the heirs. Now, here's what happens. Remember, Rockefellers buy life insurance on every heir. So now, every time an heir dies, there's money, just like GE, that goes back into the family trust. So each individual, right? They all have life insurance. Some are different shape than others here, right? Each one of them has life insurance.
Yeah.
Right? And every time they die, that life insurance, it's always going to go to the trust.
Gotcha. And it presumably repays anything that individual took from.
Yep. It replenishes the trust. It helps when there's inflation. It helps when there's additional taxes that weren't planned for. It helps with contingencies to keep the family bank alive.
Yeah. Can you do loans to non-members of the trust?
You could do whatever you spell out in the trust.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
It's your trust.
Gotcha.
And what I do is I have a family constitution, which we're going to update. We're doing a family retreat with my wife and kids.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's on the agenda, is to update it, shorten it, give some parameters, have the kids be involved in it. So we're going to go through that. And then that family constitution is going to spell things out. and it's going to give a basic set of guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
That way, as AI comes online and tech changes the entire world, we're not like living in this old antiquated, like it is exactly how it works. We're going based upon philosophies and ideas and methodologies that have some flexibility, because each heir is going to have a unique situation. If they're going to start a business, we'll support that, but we won't just completely fund that. If they, like, these are the kind of things that are spelled out. But what's great is the family trust is always getting money back to it every time an heir dies. And what it does is it keeps the trust growing and it keeps the trust alive. So that's the key, is now we don't have to use banks because we've got our family bank. We got our family trust. We don't have to pay interest. We get to keep that interest. We get to earn that interest. We get to shorten the cycle it takes to get a loan. We get, when inflation's going bananas and people are like, how are kids going to ever afford homes? Well, the family trust is what's going to help them. And it's going to get to ride that upward potential when inflation's pushing the prices up.
Like everybody who I know who's struggling to own a home, it's not because it's a little bit because of the price of the home, but it's more because of the cost of interest.
This completely protects. We could cap the interest. Right? Which, by the way, think about this. The way that house prices go up and down often have to do with the interest rate. Mm-hmm. Because we don't really buy based upon the price. We buy more based upon the payment.
Gotcha.
Right? So if interest rates were at zero, and that meant I could get a home for $1,000 a month.
Yeah, then you get
that was actually let's just say that's a $400,000 home. Okay. But when interest rates go to 7%, now maybe that $1,000 a month can only buy a $200,000 home.
Yeah.
But because interest rates were so low for so long, it kept pushing prices up.
Yep.
And so this is a conundrum where people feel like they can't afford it. Well, if we have cash and we could pay cash because of the family trust, that's negotiating power. Because we don't have to wait 30 days for bank approval. So if someone else makes an offer on the home and their offer is contingent on the loan, and we make an offer on the home and it's just contingent on the inspection, and we can close in 5 days, we have a strategic advantage to, number one, get better prices. Number two, reduce stress on our heirs, because it is stressful getting a mortgage. Yeah. Just going through the hoops process and all the details. We can have a modified underwriting process where there's still something that they have to value this, but they don't have to wait forever. They don't have to keep going back and forth with the underwriters.
Yeah, true. Like, and you also don't have this kind of like, or am I going to get approved?
Right.
Like all that.
Yeah. And number three, we're capturing all the interest. So every time my son pays interest, he's actually helping his child out.
That's crazy.
I mean, think about that. When I'm paying interest to the bank, I'm not helping my family out at all. When I'm paying interest to the family trust, I'm helping my heirs in the future.
Yeah.
I'm investing money that's going to grow the trust, which is actually the trust's purpose for me is to invest in the heirs.
Yeah.
Not in the market, in heirs. How do I help grow them? How do I help support them? How do I help give them a leg up, but not necessarily give them a handout? That's kind of the key here. So I don't have to invest in the stock market in the future because my heirs are assets to the trust.
Yeah.
I want to grow them, invest in them. Just like in a business, I want to grow my people to grow the business. I want to grow my heirs to grow the family fortune, to grow the family lifestyle, to have better family experiences, to not spend so much time restless and stressed out and worried about what's going to happen. Am I going to lose my home? Can I afford my payment? Can I get this loan? How much do I have to pay the bank? How much is that is costing me my future? When inflation's too high, is it going to be a time where now I'm having kids and I can't afford that home? Like, we're resolving so much of the conundrum that is just decimating the population right now.
Are there any fees when you're pulling out your cash policy?
You pay interest when you borrow against your cash value.
You pay
but
interest,
your cash value still stays in the policy earning interest. Like you pay interest to the insurance company because they've lent you money with your cash as collateral, but your cash gets to earn interest. So you uninterrupt the compounding.
So what would that look like on paper?
Let's say that I can get a loan for 5%. If I have $100,000 in my cash value, The insurance company, let's say they'll give me 93% of that. They'll give me $93,000 in a loan from the life insurance company. My money continues to earn. I pay them around 5% as well. So it's, sometimes I call that a wash loan. Sometimes it depends on.
Because you're still getting.
I'm still earning
dividend.
interest.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they're charging you interest, but you're getting interest. Okay, that makes sense.
So I have, a big problem that people have is when they're trying to get that compound interest, they use the money and it slows the curve down. This keeps it uninterrupted.
But there's no other fees associated with it. When you take out a 401k.
No, you're not paying a loan. I mean, you're just paying interest. There's no application fee. There's no, origination fee. It's your money is the collateral.
Is it difficult to pull the cash out of your cash value?
No, I mean, you make a phone call if it's a smaller loan, or you fill out a form if it's a bigger loan. They'll take 24 to 48 hours to process it, and then they'll either wire to the account you pay from or overnight. The worst case scenario, I once had a company, I don't use them anymore, that sent it snail mail. It was a big check to buy a company. I had another time, it was crazy because I went to fill out the loan form to buy this cabin, and I was headed to Burning Man. And so I'm doing it from a phone. I don't fill out the form right. When I get back from Burning Man, I was like, oops, I didn't check the right box. I have to do that. Then they went to overnight it. There was a storm on the East Coast, so it doesn't get, the planes don't leave. They come out the next day. They don't hit the deadline of when it needed. So it took 10 days.
Gotcha.
That was worst case scenario. I've had it get to me in 72 hours, probably 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah. How does it compare to a 401k? If we kind of put them side by side.
401k, typically in mutual funds, right?
Yeah.
Things like ETFs or index funds are kind of really popular. And a 401k is going to be variable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be typically invested. It's going to have restrictions that you can't get to the money till 59 and a half.
Yeah.
If you borrow, there's limitations.
Can you borrow?
You can.
Your 401k?
They can borrow against 401k.
Oh.
Sometimes limitation is $50,000 max or 50% of what's in the account, whichever's, great. The 50,000 is the cap. You have payback terms on a 401k. So if you borrowed, you're using after-tax dollars to put something into a pre-tax account. That's kind of problematic. And if you miss a payment, there's a problem there because we have penalties, right?
Yeah.
And the penalties before 59 and a half are basically 10%.
Yeah.
So a 401k doesn't have a death benefit. It has variable accounts where we're using cash value, which is just simply, it's more stable. It's more like savings. It comes with a death benefit. We don't have the same restrictions on getting to the cash value, so it's nothing to do with Rockefeller method with a 401k. You can't do the Rockefeller method with a 401k. It's just not possible. We are using a death benefit. The cash value is merely a supplement. It goes back to the non-qualified deferred comp conversation. You can't pull money out of a variable account at the same rate of something that's fixed and stable. Otherwise, you jeopardize disinvesting and killing that account. And so, yes, will a 401k outperform cash value of an insurance? More than likely over time because it's invested. But we're talking about your stability, your predictability, and the death benefit and replenishing this from generation to generation with certainty. When we take risk, we simply don't know if it's going to work out based upon when someone dies. And again, I want to fund the family trust. I want to have that money there. When you put money into a family trust from a 401k, you could pass that on to your spouse 100% tax-free. If you want to get it to your heirs and you don't want to pay tax, you have to use a stretch IRA, which means they can't necessarily take constructive receipt of that and start using it. It's just stuck in an account.
You got to skip a generation.
I want to have something that funds the trust, is usable to the trust, that avoids having to pay bank interest because now it can finance everything for my family for generations. And no matter what happens to the market, that death benefit is guaranteed because I've now bought my net worth. It's going to fund the plan and then continue from generation to generation. And then you go out, learn your investor DNA, invest in other things. But this is your foundation, it's your stability, and it's where you have your guarantees.
So why is this not really talked about a lot with life insurance?
It's talked about a ton now.
Oh, is it?
It's everywhere now. I mean, it's like back 30 years ago, you rarely heard about it. But now, I remember B.O.B. got my book. He's a rapper. He gave it to Waka Flocka Flame. Waka Flocka has videos with millions of views talking about life insurance after the book. He's not necessarily doing the Rockefeller method because someone else got a hold of him and has him doing riskier things. But ultimately, it's just being talked about more regularly now because of social media with big views. So that's the cool thing. but it is still less known than a 401k. It is still less known than some of these other things because it does feel a little bit more complicated. It does feel like,
because I feel like your average like life insurance sales guy, I've never heard them mention anything along this.
They're using my book like crazy. They're buying them in boards, but there's still, a long way to go for sure. There's probably only 10% that know this.
Cool.
This Rockefeller method, we simply have a lot of insurance on me. And then that, when I die, that goes to the family trust. And every single one of my heirs, which right now, it's basically, I've got my wife and my sons, and they all have insurance, right? So that insurance has cash value, has death benefit. And so when my sons hopefully have kids, my wife and I are immediately going to buy death benefit policies with cash value on those heirs, on our grandkids. And that's going to be the way that we save money, because here's what's fascinating with cash value. So it's not an investment, but for a savings, or also known as fixed income investment. So fixed income investments are money market, certificates of deposit, bonds, whether it's treasury bonds, municipal bonds, corporate bonds, it's debt instruments. Fixed income, it's like I give the money, they tell me what interest rate I get. Cash value with the top 7 companies has beat any fixed income instrument over a 30-year period of time. Plus, it comes with a death benefit. So not only does the cash value beat this, right? The cash value is greater than the death benefit comes along for the ride. And that's what keeps the trust going. Yep. That's what the Rockefellers understood. They know that their heirs are going to earn money, but they also know that there's going to be times where it's tough with inflation, or a business doesn't do as well, or something doesn't take off at the rate that they want. The death benefit is there for the protection of the family trust and for the protection of the family to be able to have the resources and assets to move forward with their initiatives. It's freaking brilliant.